Welcome to our 5 on 5. I'm pleased to be joined today by John Watt. He's a former Oregon State representative as well as now a lobbyist and CEO and president of his firm, JWA Public Affairs. John, thanks for taking the time joining us.
Thank you, Craig. Great to see you.
Good to see you too. So I know we wanted to do a little bit of a recap of this legislative session that just wrapped up not too long ago. What stands out to you most about what was accomplished?
Well, it was a very interesting session, different than any legislative session we've ever experienced in Oregon. For the first time ever, the Capitol was closed under the COVID mandates and things of that nature. So it really set a different tone for not being able to, from my point of view and my colleagues, not being able to be in the Capitol, and certainly Oregon's constituency not being able to sit in front of their legislators and talk about the issues that meant a lot to them. But, they did it on Zoom, and we learned, particularly for those of us in Southern Oregon, really have more access to legislators than we've ever had before. We don't have to drive 3.5 hours to get up there. We can jump on the Zoom, or you can make appointments with members on Zoom, and they were very, very open to that. So the communication was still wide open, but it set a tone for this legislative session, Craig. So, that was probably the biggest difference that happened in the session this year.
Okay, what about was there a piece of legislation, maybe the budget or something specific beyond that was done that you think was standout?
Certainly the budget was the biggest issue. As every legislative session is, they're constitutionally mandated to write a budget. So that has to happen. This one was a whopper with the money that came from the federal government, which was $2.6 billion, and increased revenues. It added up to a $29.4 billion budget for the next biennium, as compared to $23.6 billion in the existing biennium that we're in. So that's a 20% increase in Oregon's budget. A lot of new programs were developed, and the concern one has to have is, with all those new programs in the next session, in 4 years, do those programs, are they maintained, or are they one-time only programs? Once government builds a program, it's very, very hard to eliminate it. So the question then becomes, in the next session, how are we going to make up for that difference? Where are the revenues going to come from if we don't depend on the federal government to continue to subsidize the budget as they have? So that was probably the biggest issue. Now, the legislative leadership made it very clear at the beginning of the session that there were going to be 3 priorities. Speaker Kotek made it very clear at the beginning that it was going to be crisis response and helping people overall. So in no particular order, police reform, equity, and wildfire recovery and mitigation for the future were the top issues. While a lot of other things went on, those are the things they wanted to get accomplished during this legislative session.
Okay, well, we're gonna blow through our commercial break here and just continue, John. As I want to ask you about, we want to get to redistricting. I do want to talk about that. That's a big deal coming up. But climate change, big partisan issue we've had for several years in Salem. Steps were taken this session, correct?
Sure, and basically, while the minority party didn't agree with that, and of course in the last session there were walkouts and all these kinds of things, there was a negotiated agreement where they're looking at 40 years down the road to completely eliminate fossil fuels. It was agreed to by the major utility companies. So that was solved in a reasonable manner as we move forward, and that's what's going to happen.
Okay, and so we are going to get another congressional seat. Redistricting is on the calendar. How do you see that playing out?
Well, first of all, I think it's important for your listeners to understand that that's a constitutional issue. The legislature is mandated to get that completed before the end of the legislative session. But because the census was late, it still has not been completed. So it comes into the political issues. Certainly, you have to look and see who's in control. The majority party has wide margins, and so there's really not anything that the Republicans, or not much they can do about it. However, stop the presses. During the middle of the legislative session, the minority party, as the Constitution requires, had them read every single bill in its entirety on the House floor. So that was taking up a great deal of time. It was going to put the skids on the session. So the speaker said, hey, I'll make you a deal. How about if I make parity on the redistricting committee? So there's just as many Republicans as there are Democrats. Wow. You know, those of us who've been watching the process for a long, long time could say, nah, maybe that wasn't the smartest thing for the speaker to do, given the fact that she had that solid supermajority. So that has happened. So we'll see in a perfect world, the Senate will agree to the redistricting plan that the House passes. But will the Democrats be happy with that in the Senate side? So we don't really have any clue as to how redistricting is going to play out this time. If for any reason the House and the Senate can't agree, then it goes to the Secretary of State. She has maintained that she will turn it over to a People's Commission. That's never been done before. So big question mark with regard to that. Of course, we're gaining a new congressional seat. So we'll have 6 as opposed to just 5. How that shapes the way the rest of the state is penned out. I don't think, my crystal ball tells me probably rural and Southern Oregon is not going to change a whole lot. We'll probably see the biggest changes in the metro area and the Willamette Valley. That'd be my guess.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see. John, thank you so much for taking the time.
You bet. Thank you, Craig. Great to see you.
You too. We'll be right back.